into some of the health stuff going on in the community. And you know, he could speak the language, and it mattered. What we had to do with the men was to make sure that there was a visit and a phone call before every meeting, and maybe they would show. The women managed to get there, and good things sometimes happen. Yeah. Well, look, I think we probably have a core, but what I would hope we could do would be to crystallize some of the major points that seem to matter and realize that education still is a two-way process. And what I think Ted did, more than I did actually, was to bring in that dimension that you had to add to some of the other things that we learned in sociology and social work and the rest of it, to fit that skill set to the needs of a community that had had a unique experience in America. And I think the commonality is in Boston, Mississippi, and North Carolina is the experience of being black in America, and the need to recognize that that is still here, and that you have to have strategies that are effective. And I think we kind of got there, but never quite gave it the theoretical attention that I think it deserves. And as I say, Anita has been on this journey as well.
Who else besides Anita? I mean, we could continue this or to have another installment or whatever, and I'm wondering, Anita's definitely somebody to bring in, but are there other people either in the Department of Health Education at Central or the Health Behavior Department at UNC?
Well, you know, I don't know whether Howard is able now.
Howard Fitz.
Yeah, because he's been in retirement home for.
Yeah, I know where he's living.
Phyllis Gray.
Phyllis Gray.
Yeah.
It's going to be recorded, so I won't take the note. But okay, Phyllis Gray. Anybody who's teaching now, because if you want this to be, I mean, you want this to be in the training of masters and maybe doctoral students, it would be good if we had a faculty member who's actively teaching, who would help to bring things out that she...
Now, I don't know what Jeannie Ng is doing or what she's done, but when she was a student, she did... Oh, yeah. Bob Aronson.
Bob Aronson, uh-huh.
Yeah, Bob Aronson worked for a black church for about 3 years, and it facilitated his entry into the doctoral program at Hopkins because they wanted to educate a black man with his experience.
Yeah. This was out east, you were telling me. This was out east, eastern North Carolina?
No, he's the chairman of health education, I think at Lincoln University in Indiana or Illinois or something.
But the 3 years that you mentioned that he was doing an internship, wasn't that in eastern North Carolina?
No, Bob's been gone from here a good while.
But long ago, didn't you tell me that he had this opportunity to go out east in North Carolina?
To go
out east in North Carolina?
He was out there 3 years working for the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, running a health program, and did very well.
That was, where was that?
To the point that Hopkins, he was in Wilmington.
Wilmington.
But they initially thought he was black because he was working for the M.E. Zion Church and doing all of this community outreach with churches and so forth. Then he got hired as a professor at the University of Oklahoma. Again, they thought they were hiring a black person. But he interacted, of course, with the bishop and with the preachers, and he was the kind of person who could respect human beings. The way that kind of happened was I'd gotten a decent grant from the Mott Foundation, and they insisted on having a professional, which I agreed with. And to tell you the truth, black people who were qualified wouldn't take it, the job. And I said, well, Bishop, you know, I have a young man as a research assistant that has served me well. And anyway, he got the job and went on to better things. And then Elizabeth, what's Elizabeth's last name? Carr, I think C-A-R-K, Carr, something like that. Anyway, Elizabeth, white woman, and she also worked with me on various projects, including in Creedmoor and places like that, and worked independently for a black woman doctor down in South Carolina, and developed a lot of skill and insight. I think at some level, and there's some names I've forgotten I need to resurrect. Like there was one guy who did an interview with some of the leading pastors of the General Baptist State Convention, who they were, what their motivation was, stuff like that. I think it might be important, if I can remember who he was, to have white students have been in the midst of a black experience to talk about what they learned and how they feel about it. I think it served them well.
I expect so.
Yeah.
Is there anybody teaching at Central now? Ted, do you remember? I mean, do you know of the people who are...
Laverne Reed would be familiar with...
I could ask her.
Yeah. And Anita teaches at Central too.
Lahoma Ramaki, did we mention her already?
Oh, Lahoma.
Lahoma
Ramaki. No, we didn't. She would be a good person to ask.
Yes, she would be.
Okay.
But Anita teaches, I think, a couple of courses at Central.
Okay.
And she's a graduate of Central as well, so that would...
And of UNC.
Anita? No. No, Jeannie is the only person on faculty now that I even know who they are, you know. I think everybody I know has retired or died. But many people, as I was talking with some health education students a couple of months ago, initially assume that working with the church is just grounded in religiosity. I said, no, it's the primary organization and it's the face of the black community, and whether the people gathered are NAACP or housing committee or youth reform, they're church people, and especially so the women. And many of them have developed skill sets that are just awesome. Say, like, one of the best health educators we had was chicken plucker. That's how she earned her living. But she was a master of organizing people and could get them out. And then in that same group, we had a retired school principal who communicated well with people and knew the structure of the church and how to harness it to address certain kinds of health issues. And I didn't do that as adequately as it should have been done.
So, Ted, you're writing up a document now, I hear.
Yes, I am.
Do you want to talk about what it will cover?
Sure, why not?
And also, Vic, I don't think they ever got back to what you were asking in terms of the biographical,
Not yet.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, I've always been interested in housing as one of the essentials for healthful living. And so I've looked at gentrification and ethnic cleansing as two forces, basically the same things, that have to be reckoned with if you're going to maximally help people who are at risk. So what I have written about is my traveling down a road of mitigating gentrification in Boston, here in Chapel Hill,
Anybody need
in Washington,
water?
D.C., and so on.
Well,
And were you in Mississippi also?
I was in Mississippi. We
Some
did a
water
little bit
in
in
the
Mississippi.
refrigerator.
In Mississippi, we were able to get some monies out of OEO at that time to help some former farmers build brickcrete houses. You know what brickcrete is? It's a type of clay that was plentifully available down in Mississippi, and they were able to make this, basically it's brick, make this product, and we built a number of houses. I don't know how many it was, but the people doing the building had essentially been farmers, and there was one guy who was a home repairman whom we put in charge of this house building stuff. And one day, and we were paying him more money than I'm sure he ever made. One day at lunchtime, this guy walked off of a job and went, there was a railroad line that ran right along 61, and he went out there and walked right in front of a train. And that was the last we knew of him.
Oh.
But they used this product, brickcrete, to advantage. We wanted to build in some places other than Mount Bayer, but there was a whole thing regarding the fire retardancy of the product, and we were able to get around it. We were able to get around it and did get, I don't know, do you remember how many houses we built, John?
I don't know. I
Well,
remember it, but
we built several houses down there.
I remember the process.
and so your book.
All right, thank you.
Ted,
Oh.
Ted,
I thank you very much.
so,
Just in time.
so in your book, it's kind of an integration of your life along.
Yeah,
with,
that's right.
Back to, yeah, gentrification and all that and stuff. Thank you, Fledra.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ted is-
Lots of Europeans were coming over to America to look for the gold at the end of the rainbow. A lot of them got into real estate. At the same time that literally millions of, well, there were 6 million black people were leaving the South and going to the North and the West. The importance of that is that these newly arrived Europeans saw, thank you, saw black people as a ticket to their goal, because they bought up these old tenement buildings that once belonged as single